Welcome everyone to Redesigning School Counseling webinar for first year schools. The focus of this webinar is implementation preparation. My name is Sue Reynolds and I am the president of the American Student Achievement Institute. So today's agenda is this. We will again just kind of review the process and the products just to kind of give the big picture one more time. And then we'll focus on this month's activities, which is on preparation for the activities that you selected over the past month. And we'll look specifically at the submissions and then the rubric for those submissions. So let's start out very quickly. I'm going to fly through this with the review. So first of all, just a reminder that RSC is all about helping students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. And we express that with our impact pyramid. And basically we're saying that when students are involved in sound guidance and counseling programs, as a result of that, they make better choices in areas that impact student achievement. And because of that, achievement goes up. And so this year, when we've been designing your school counseling program, we started out with the academic achievement goals that were in your school improvement plan. And then we said, okay, what choices do kids have to make in order for our school to reach those academic goals? And so now your whole program is focused on helping kids make good choices. So as you design your guidance activities and your counseling activities last month, you selected activities that specifically would help students make the targeted choices that you would like them to make in your school. So the process was like this. We started almost a year and a half ago. We started by getting ready. You put together the organizational structure, started collecting data, and then last September you started meeting with your advisory council. You did an introduction. You created a vision for the ideal state. And then you looked at program goals, or what choices do kids need to make in order to move you closer to that ideal state. And then in December you said, okay, we can't hit all those goals all in one year. So what are going to be our priority goals for next school year? And we expanded resources, knowing that the more time, funding, and resources that you have, the more priority goals you could tackle. So next we went to root cause, which was the step that explains why kids aren't making the choices that you want them to make. Either they don't have knowledge, or they don't have opportunities, or they have personal social issues that are getting in the way of good decision making. And then last month you said, okay, if these are the choices we want kids to make, and these are the reasons why they're not making those choices, then what activities do we need to put in place? So we looked at addressing guidance, counseling, advocacy, and management activities that you'll put into your school counseling program next school year. And then today we're going to talk about, okay, now that we know what we want to do, let's get ready to do it. This is really a huge step. Without this step, the school counseling program tends to be on paper but not in practice. So this is the step that makes the bridge between having a written school counseling plan and having it be in practice, moving it from paper to action. So today we're going to spend a lot of time talking about writing guidance lessons, and then we'll also talk about how to create a program calendar and then an annual budget. So we'll look at those steps this month, and then next month in May there's a little bit more preparation to do, and we'll talk about some of those odds and ends that you'll do in May. So, okay. So one of the things I want to emphasize is that you have all of the products now in your school counseling program. So when we refer to the school counseling portfolio, the program portfolio, this is what we're talking about. Your school counseling portfolio consists of your vision statement, your goals, your resource expansion plan, your priority goals, your root causes, and your activities. Those were the different products that came out of the process that we went through, the data-driven process. So just going to pause real quickly, see if anybody has any questions. Not seeing any hands up, but those of you who are participating live, just unmute yourself and jump in if you have a question. Okay, I'm going to assume there's no questions. Okay, so now let's talk about preparation. So to prepare, there are products that will come out of this step as well. One will be lesson plans. The requirement for both Gold Star and Ask a Ramp is that you have lesson plans written, and that we would like to see 3 academic lesson plans, 3 career lesson plans, and 3 personal social lesson plans. And then also there's requirement that in your group counseling that you've included the lesson plans for each of the lessons that you're incorporating into your group counseling. For example, if you're doing a group for students who have issues with aggression, most likely you're going to be doing a lesson on how to be assertive versus aggressive or passive, and so that lesson plan you would include, that activity you would include a lesson plan for. Then the other lesson plan that's required is a lesson plan that would help students where you have a guidance gap to help the gap group make better choices. So your gap group may be that your low-income kids don't sign up for AP classes is maybe what you're trying to address. So you're going to have a lesson plan that would engage and help the low-income kids really understand AP and how to get enrolled and how to pay for the test and all that stuff. So we'll go over that again, but basically we're looking at a minimum of 9 guidance lesson plans, but we also, with the lessons being included for your group counseling activities, and also 1 guidance gap lesson plan. Okay, so that's one product, the lesson plans, and then another one is the annual calendar. But I'm pleased to tell you that your annual calendar is already finished. When you entered each of your activities last month, the computer, you put a date in for those activities, and the computer just put those activities into a calendar, so your calendar is ready to go. Then we'll look at creating a budget. We have a budget template for you, so that's going to be pretty easy. And so those are the 3 things that we're talking about this month. And then next month in May we'll talk about the miscellaneous things, the job description and program brochure and public relations, all those things. Today we're going to do the top 3. Okay, so let's jump in to the online system, and let's see here. Actually, we worked with Environmental Charter School. They're a school in Pittsburgh earlier today, and I'm just going to use their website again. We have their permission to use them for the demonstration. Okay, so when you're getting ready to do your work, again, you want to go to the process page, and to get to the process page, you would just, in the left navigation bar, just click process, and then we're going to scroll down to April. And here's April. So the webcast that we are recording now will be available here. So if you want to come back and look at this again, you can just click Tools. Then step 2 is entering your lesson plans. So I'm going to well, before I click Enter, I want to show you, you might want to look through all your lessons and I'm sorry, all of your activities, and ask yourself, well, which ones do I want to actually develop lesson plans for? And so if you click on Report, all of, oops, come back here. You click on, go, click on the report, it's asking you to look at, to select a lesson plan, and I'm sorry, it's looking at all lesson plans. Let's just go ahead and generate the report. No, I'm doing something wrong here. At any rate, when you click on this, I'll have to explode that after we worked 2 seconds ago. When you click on this report, oh, I'm sorry. I'm telling you totally wrong. The report that I'm looking for is up in the activities section. So you can look on this report where it says You could go to the Update Program Activities report, click here, and all of the activities that the school is planning to do come up, and then you can decide which ones you want to develop lesson plans for. Okay, so then, got ahead of myself there. So now when I'm preparing to implement and I'm actually entering the lesson plans, I'm going to click on Enter, and here is another place where if you want to review your program activities, you can click on this report, and the same report that I just showed you will pop up here as well. So you can get to that program activities report either way, either on this screen in this month or going back to last month. Okay, so one of the things that you can do is import a lesson plan from another RSC school. So let's say that one of your program activities was to do a career interest inventory. You've never done that before. You're thinking, well, let's look to see what other schools have done, and if there's one I like, I'll just import that one. So I'm going to click on Tools, and I can put whatever search words I want to use in here. So I'm just going to put in career interest, and I can say, I only want to see career interest activities that are for 6th graders or 9th graders or 9, 10, 11, 12 or whatever. I'm not going to check anything else here because I want to see everything that comes up. So I'm just going to put in career interest. I'm going to click on search, and I get 6 schools that have implemented career interest inventories and have documented them here in the lesson plan. And so if I scroll down, let's just go to this one here. So here's a lesson plan that was designed it's a career interest inventory for grade 10, so if I'm in high school, this one might fit. The guidance indicator that it's addressing is re-examine their career interest annually based on their additional life experiences or an updated career interest inventory. Here's a quick summary. Use an online career interest inventory to examine career interest based on additional experiences, time required, who entered it, what school they're from. And then I noticed that this plan was imported by 6 other schools. So this makes me think that there must be resources, and so I might want to look at this one a little bit more. So let's say I look at this one, I like the way it's developed, I'm happy with it, and I'm just basically going to replicate what Debbie did at Mississinawa. So I can just click Import into my school's lesson plans. That will take this lesson, drop it into your school's lesson plans with a reference to Debbie Daly at Mississinawa. You can go in and edit it. You can make it, fine-tune it so it matches your school and how you're doing things. But it's got the reference there to Debbie, and you're all good to go. So that just kind of saves you some time. So you can see here's another one that 6 schools have imported. Here's one that 3 schools have imported. There's one, actually there's one here that 17 schools have imported. This happens to be one that I wrote. And my guess is that I included a lot of references on this one, so my guess is they like the references and just wanted to import that in. So, and if you see lesson plans that haven't been imported, that does not mean that they're not well written or they're not good lesson plans. Julie Renninger, if some of you probably know her, she is a fabulous school counselor at Zionsville West Middle School, and I know this activity is probably just top-notch. So what it could be is just that this is a fairly new activity that nobody just has had a chance to review and implement yet, or import yet. So I wouldn't rule things out just because nobody's imported them, but that kind of gives you a way to see, with a peer-to-peer review, who's finding different lesson plans to be helpful. So you can view the whole lesson plan. Let me just go down because I know what's in the one that I created here. So you can view the whole lesson plan. This tells you, gives you everything you need. Here's resources that I've uploaded. And then if you decide to import it, then it will give a reference, in this case to me, or whoever wrote it to begin with. So, okay. So that's one thing you can do to get your lesson plans in. My guess is that a lot of you will be describing lesson plans that that you've used for a while, and so you just want to describe what you're currently doing, or you've got an idea and you want to create your own. So we've also given you a tool, and my guess is this is probably really where you're going to create most of your lessons. You're going to enter a lesson plan that you create. So you're going to click on Enter, and just some tips on this one. In the lesson plan title, you want to be very descriptive with that. So this might be group counseling for students suspended for aggression. Okay, so I'm going to do a group with kids who have been suspended for fighting or whatever. And then you'd enter the grade levels, the targeted student groups. I can say this is for all students. You know, I didn't target any student group when I was selecting students for this group. Or you could, you know, this maybe is a group for Hispanic students or a group for just boys or whatever. Or you can locally define. So in this case, I would locally define as students who have been suspended for aggression. Okay, and then my setting, and I'm going to click group counseling, and notice that the group facilitator then is going to come up. This is a requirement for ASCA, and then the number of students that are going to participate. Then any indicators that will be addressed during the group counseling or whatever the activity is, I'm going to select the indicators. Actually, I'm going to go back because there's one thing that I probably would do differently. The lesson title is probably not group counseling because this is going to be a lesson that I do within the group counseling. So this would be a lesson on aggression, assertiveness, and passivity. Okay, so that's actually the lesson. And then the group is going to be, the locally defined group would be students participating in group counseling who have been suspended for aggression. Okay, so then in the indicators, I'd want to scroll down to the section that begins with the personal social, and I might want to, you know, select that this is going to be, you know, they're going to practice strategies for reducing anger. They're going to demonstrate simple ways to resolve conflicts as part of this lesson. You know, whatever I'm teaching as part of that lesson. Okay, so then I'm going to give a summary, I like to do the summary just to think about, like if you were writing a newspaper article, in your lead paragraph you would say, you know, what's happening, who's doing it, who's participating. So it's just a who, what, where, when, how, you know, just kind of getting the specifics into a very brief summary statement. Time required, you know, whatever the length is going to be. The procedure, and on procedures, as you're writing this, be thinking about, you know, if you were to leave the school next year, you'd want some other counselor to be able to come in and grab this lesson and be able to do it. So I like to do my procedures as just step-by-steps. I like to think, okay, if I'm baking cookies, I'm going from step 1 to step 2, and I'm just kind of writing a step-by-step process for implementing this lesson. Then evaluation. The evaluation is probably going to, well, not probably, is going to evaluate, did students learn the things that we wanted them to learn? Did they do the things that we wanted them to do during the lesson? Our programming people put lots of save buttons in, so if I were saving this, I'd click save and then I'd go on. So resources needed, you can type, you know, whatever the resource is and then give a web address to where somebody could find that resource. or if it's something that you've developed that you want to share with other counselors in your school or with other counselors you know, in the world, you could choose a file off of your computer and upload that into our system for other people to borrow and use with your blessing. So then on citations, we feel very strongly about this. If you have if you are using materials that somebody else developed, first of all, we don't want you to upload those materials. So there should be no copyrighted materials that get uploaded into our system unless you've developed them and you're wanting to share them with everyone. Otherwise, we don't want you to upload copyrighted materials. But what you could do is give a citation of where those materials could be found. So you give somebody's address or their phone number or a link or whatever, or the company name where they could be purchased, or whatever you need there. And then if you're collaboratively doing this activity with someone else, so maybe you're doing a lesson on interviewing skills with the Chamber of Commerce, you would write down who the collaborative partners are and then save. And then the bottom part doesn't become live until the top part is all filled out. But in this section, you're just giving us permission. You're giving ACE, our organization, permission to share your lesson plans on the website in the searchable database. So you just be clicking off, my lesson plan is complete. I give ACE permission to make the lesson plan available. And then we want to know what information you want to be connected to that lesson for follow-up. So the name of the school, and then the person's name that people would contact if they have any questions about the lesson. And then if you want to include that person's email address or their phone number with the lesson, you'd click those. And I don't think I've ever seen a lesson that didn't have the contact information for the person. I mean, if you're counselors are just so helpful to each other and are so open to sharing things that that I think people just feel comfortable sharing that information. So, okay, so that's how you get the lessons in. After a lesson is in, you can come in and delete it as well if you decide not to do it or whatever. You can always come back and edit it. So once I save, that's going to put the lesson, name of the lesson down here. And so you'll have a group of your lessons here, the title, the guidance area, the grades, the student group, the setting, and then will be a button where you can edit it, a button where you can print that lesson plan, or you can delete them here as well. And then these little sort buttons, sometimes people want to sort their lessons by grade level or sort them by guidance area. So we just gave you some sort buttons up here so you can put those lessons in different orders. So, okay, so while we're talking about lesson plans, which is the bulk of this month, let's go ahead. I want to look at the rubric items for lesson plans. So here's the rubric items. We're looking for 3 academic lesson plans, 3 career lesson plans, 3 personal social lesson plans. Sometimes lesson plans will cover more than one, but whichever one is the most predominant lesson is the one that you would count that as. And then the rest of these in this section are just, did you fill in all those boxes? Did you fill in a grade level, student group, setting, guidance indicators, summary, time required? So this is just, did the boxes get filled in? Then on the group counseling, this is an ASCA requirement and a Gold Star requirement. So we want to make sure that there's a lesson plan is present for each group counseling activity. So here's what that means. Let's say you have 3 different groups that are meeting. The requirement would be to select one of those groups, and any guidance lesson that you have planned for that group, you would need to create a lesson plan for. So let's say a group's going to meet 10 times, and within those 10 meetings, you're going to incorporate 7 lessons. So you would need to have a lesson plan for each of those 7 lessons. And again, you don't have to spend hours and hours and hours, describing them. Just a brief definition, a brief summary, the to-do list, how to do it, preparation. But you do need to have a lesson plan for each of the guidance lessons that are incorporated within one of your group counseling groups. So, okay. Then the group counseling lesson plans describes the focus of the group. That would be in the description that you would say, you know, this focus of this group is to help students not be aggressive at school, you know, or whatever it is. So that's going to be in the description. And then the number of students and the name of the counselor facilitating the group, those are separate fields that you'll fill in. Okay, then I want to talk for a little bit about the next requirement. That's the closing the gap. So as you looked at your student choice data, I think my guess is probably all of you found that there are some groups of students in your building that make sound choices at to a lesser degree than other groups. We often hear that that's the low-income kids, or the kids who get D's and F's on the report cards, or for whatever, there's kids that are making choices at a lesser degree than their peers. So what this requirement is that you've incorporated at least one lesson that would somehow target the students that are making choices at a lesser degree than their peers, sound choices at a lesser degree than their peers. So then there's kind of two ways you can do this. Let's say that you've discovered that your low-income kids are not enrolling in AP classes at the same level as your paid lunch kids. So what you could do is you could have a separate program where you bring in all of your free and reduced lunch kids and you talk to all of them about AP and dual credit. So that's one way to do it. You'd be targeting your low-income kids and you'd be giving them the information that a lot of them don't have. That way, in my thinking, it's a little bit stereotyping, because it's working under the assumption that all low-income kids don't understand AP. That may or may not be the case. You're going to have a higher percentage in low income that don't understand that, but you can't assume that they all don't know what AP courses are or how to get into them. But that's one way that we've seen schools do. A second way is in the survey. Don't forget that you can go in and ask the computer to give you a list of students who don't understand AP, or aren't planning to take an AP test or course. So you could go in to the computer and target students that way and then bring those kids into a special program where you've said, you indicated on the Learn More survey that you weren't, or the RSC survey, that you weren't planning to take an AP class. We want to make sure you understand what AP is, and target kids that way with a guidance lesson that way. Another thing you could do, and this is I think probably what most schools do, is they'll do one activity for all students. They'll teach all students about AP. So they've gone into all the 10th grade English classes to talk about scheduling, and they're telling all 10th graders about AP. But they've thought about, why aren't our low-income kids enrolling in AP? Well, maybe it's because they know that they have to pay for a test, and the test is kind of expensive. So what they've done is, as they're talking to all kids, they are really emphasizing that there's funding available for all kids to take the test if that's an issue for anyone. So they're doing an activity for all kids, but they're going to tweak it so that it's really addressing the needs of whatever student group is underrepresented in that student choice. So just kind of be thinking about it's all about engagement. When you're looking at an activity that's going to address a guidance gap, how can you design the activity so it engages the students who are making that choice at a lesser level, to a lesser degree? Okay, so at least one of your guidance activities needs to address a targeted student group, and how you're going to show that is when you enter the activity in that student group section, you would check, low income or Hispanic or boys or whatever that activity is being designed, whatever student group that activity is being designed to focus on. Okay, that was kind of a long explanation, but I just really wanted to make sure that you understood that guidance gap lesson plan. Okay, so that's it on guidance lessons. Let me just pause here and see if anybody has questions about the guidance lessons. Let's see if I see hands up. Oops, I do see a hand, but I can't get to it. Nope. Okay, I think that was... There we go. So the question is, can our gap group and group counseling count the same thing? In other words, so if you've got this is from Laura Robbins, so the example she gave is that if you have, you're doing a group counseling, but you're doing it, group counseling targeted with special ed students, and you're really addressing the needs of special ed students who might be on the F list, could that count for both group counseling and the gap lesson plan? Yes. So yeah, absolutely. So just when you're describing the guidance lessons with it for all the guidance lessons, each one needs a lesson plan in that group. Then in some of those lessons, you'd want to say, this is targeted towards special ed, and check off the special ed kids. Yep, that would work. Okay, let me see. I'm not seeing any other questions. Very good. Okay, so let's go on to the rest of this, which is really very simple. Okay, so that was lesson plans. The annual calendar is already finished as soon as you put in your activities. So environmental charter school, if I open up the report, these are all the activities that they've already entered, and you can see the computer just took off just put them in the appropriate month. So their annual calendar is all ready to go. And look at how impressive this is. When you look at putting all those activities in, I mean, counselors do a lot of stuff, and it's just so, obvious that why we're so busy, why we shouldn't have non-program tasks, why we need school counselors. When you start looking at all the different activities that school counselors do each month to support learning in the building. So that's the calendar, and it's already created as soon as you've got your activities in. Then the funding proposal, this actually we're going to do a little bit of editing on these two steps. So the first, and this is going to be an either or. You will either submit a funding proposal or you'll submit a budget. So the reason we're making this an either or is in some schools, the school counseling program does not have a budget. The math department may have a budget, the science department has a budget, social studies has a budget, but the school counseling program is not given a budget. If I were in one of those schools, I'd probably be wanting to advocate for a budget. I think if all the other departments have a budget, it just makes sense that the school counseling program has a budget, and then you can determine how to spend those funds. But we know that in a lot of schools, a budget doesn't exist for school counseling. And instead, the counselors will go to the principal every time they want to spend a dime, and they'll say, could I please have, 10 cents to buy this? Could I please have, $100 to buy that? And I'd really like to do this. Could I have some money? So every single every single purchase gets discussed with the principal. In other departments, the funding is just given to the educators, and the educators determine themselves how to spend that money. So, but if you are in a school where you don't have a budget, what you will turn in is a funding proposal. So this would be like a memo or a letter that you've sent to whoever you're wanting to get funding from that says, we'd like to do this with the kids. Here's how much money we would need. Here's what we're going to spend it on. Would you consider funding this activity for us? So this could be a proposal that you gave to your principal. This is the funding that I'll need for the year, and would you look this over, and here's the results that I'm going to get, from having this funding, and this is how kids are going to be different. You've written a really good funding proposal. But it doesn't have to be to the principal, and actually This is a step where we start to see advisory council members step up, especially if you've involved like your community foundation or businesses. You know, to a lot of businesses, $500 is just like pocket change. You know, to me as a school counselor, $500 probably, well, would have more than doubled my budget. You know, you may be able to seek some funding from your advisory council members now. So that's another, you know, another source. At any rate, so if you don't have a budget, you're going to turn in a funding proposal. And what you'll see right here is an uploader button. The uploader buttons look like this. They have the little arrow. It's not on there right now, so we'll get that fixed right away. And so when you go in, you'll see it and just upload that proposal. Okay, if you do have a budget, on this line, it's not going to say or funding proposal. It's just going to say budget. And then on that one, you'll click this icon where we've created a tool for you to create a budget with. So this might be, let's say that one of your activities is to help kids create a four-year high school course plan, and you want to order some four-year high school course plans that you're going to have your local printer do, and you're going to do them in two-part NCR paper so that the kids can keep a copy and hand you a copy after they've created their four-year course plan. So the category is supplies, and the primary area for this is, I'm going to use this as in a guidance activity, and budget notes may be something like that you can get 200 copies at, I don't know how much it would cost, 50 bucks. It's probably high. And then who the printer is going to be, Joe Printing, and then what the amount is. So I need say 400 of these, so my amount is going to be $100. And watch what happens down here as I type that in. The system is going to tally that for you. And then to create the next item in the budget, you would just click add another budget item. The next one pops up, and you put in there what you want. Don't forget to save. My guess is we must have a lot of people forget to save on this page because our programmers put this in red, and they hardly ever put anything in red, so make sure you save. So, and then each time you add something, the total budget will appear in here. So, and then this is something too that if you have to turn in a budget to your principal to show how you've spent the money that you're allocated, your department is allocated, you could just print this off and give it to them, give it to him or her. Okay, so that's budget. The rubric items for these last two or last three is just that an annual calendar is present and either a proposal or a budget is present. So, and that's it. And check things off as you go, save your checks, and that is it. So, so then just kind of looking ahead, next month in May, we have one more webinar coming up in May, and we'll just go through all these odds and ends, coming up with some things for advocacy, a program brochure, public relations, professional development, just kind of, odds and ends. And so we'll do this stuff in May, and then at the end, you can publish your school counseling program portfolio online. And if this were in Indiana school, there'd be another little link here that says submit your portfolio to the Indiana Department of Education for the Gold Star School Counseling Award. And you'll click that, and as soon as you've clicked it, then DOE gets it, and they will do the review. So, okay. So, I think that's it. Let's see if we have any questions. Let me open that up again. I am not seeing any questions. And anybody who's listening live, if you have a question, just unmute yourself. So it's mainly this month about getting ready and creating those lesson plans. I think that's going to be the time-consuming part. The thinking about your budget will take some time, but it's the lesson plans mainly that are the, it's going to be the time-consuming part. Next month, I should have pointed this out too. For next month, we've given you samples of everything that we were asking for. So if you don't have a job description, you can start with one that we've created as a template and kind of adjust that. If you don't have a brochure, you can click here and it will take you to I think this is a Google search where there's a lot of different school counseling brochures that have been created across the country. So, okay, if there's no other questions, I'll go to the slide that I like to end with, which is this one. Just remembering that you all make a difference in the lives of young people, and that the time that you're putting into this initiative to make sure that you have a data-driven school counseling program that really meets the needs of your kids, this is time well spent because you're making a difference. So thanks so much, and we will sign off now and see everybody next month in May. Thanks, everyone.